Welcome to the Specialty In-Basket Project Phase 1 training video. We are thrilled that you have decided to pursue this work focused on reducing physician time spent managing calls and patient messages. In this phase, we'll guide you on how to create focus and define the specific problem you will address in this project and build your project team. So let's get started. As a reminder, we encourage you to watch this video with your dyad partner or your team if you have assembled one. As well, have the Phase 1 workbook on hand to follow along. You may print the workbook from the Phase 1 folder inbox. Please close any unnecessary applications on your laptop and silence your phone to refrain from distractions. Throughout the video, there will be discussion sessions with your dyad partner or team, so feel free to pause the training video as needed. We will begin with an overview of the SPIN playbook and then jump into Phase 1 of the project cycle, then conclude with next steps. As a reminder, this improvement project aims to reduce physician time spent on offline patient needs that come in via calls or messages. This can be achieved by decreasing the volume of messages, the time spent per message, or both. There are many ways to approach this problem, and each team has their unique challenges. This playbook will guide you in selecting focus areas that will lead to improvement. So let's go over the approach of completing this project. The SPIN playbook is a self-paced approach based in A3 thinking for local leaders to lead their team in planning and implementing improvement work. The team is comprised with frontline team members who do the work. The SPIN playbook will guide you through 4 phases. In the first phase, you will initiate setup and project selection to create focus. In the second phase, you will do current state observations and root cause analysis to have a better understanding of your problem. In the third phase, you will develop a future state and action plan to address the root causes found in Phase 2. Finally, in the final phase, the team implements the work, checks on results, and plans for sustainment. The SPIN playbook is specifically tailored to focus on in-basket work, primarily on patient medical advice requests and patient calls. So let's go into more details about the 4 phases of SPIN. This visual provides further details on the work in each phase of the project. As you can see, there are a total of 16 steps that you and your team will go through. It is important to follow each step in each phase before moving on to the next phase. This will ensure that the problem is well defined, root causes are understood, and the actions planned will yield the desired improvement. This video will focus on the steps of Phase 1. The purpose of this phase is to use preliminary data and observations to confirm this work is worthy of the team's effort, and if so, define the specific problem to be solved. It is critical for the project leaders to spend the time to clearly define the problem and the outcome measure so that the team is aligned for success. Ambiguity in this step can lead to confusion, rework, and frustration for the team. So let's take a look at the 5 steps that you and your team will complete for Phase 1. In Step 1, you will be reviewing preliminary data to help identify the problem areas. In Step 2, you will conduct process walks to narrow down the problem you want to solve. In Step 3, you will define the problem and draft your problem statement. In Step 4, you will meet with your Tier 2 leadership to get input and support on the problem you've selected to solve. Lastly, in Step 5, you will assemble your project team that will tackle the defined problem. So let's jump into the details of completing the first step, which is conducting a preliminary data review. As project leaders, you have received a data dashboard that includes specific metrics around in-basket data. Let's take a moment to review these metrics on Miro. Let's start by giving you an orientation to the data dashboard. The data dashboard has 4 columns. There is the metric category, which indicates what type of metric we are looking at. There is a category that looks at the time spent in the in-basket, and the other one that looks at the in-basket message volume. Within these metric categories, there are 6 major metrics that you will assess for your department. There is a metric that will look at the overall average hours a week spent in basket per physician FTE. Within that lens, we also have a metric that looks at average hours per week by each physician. There is a metric that looks at the total in-basket message volume received to the department's pools and individual recipients, specifically PMAR and patient call message types. We also specifically look at incoming messages that directly go to the physician in-baskets. We also have a metric that looks at the percentage of conversation threads that have high touches. What we mean by high touches, we mean messages. So essentially, how much back and forth is happening between the care team and the patient. And lastly, there is a metric that looks at how many patients sent an in-basket message had a visit the same day or the next day within the department. The third column provides screenshots of the Tableau dashboards for each respective metric. Along with the screenshots, there are some post-its tagged next to some metrics that call out additional information. Take the time to go over the data and the post-its to give you an understanding of where potential improvement areas may exist. And lastly, there is a headlines column where you and your team will be able to add any additional callouts, reflections, or questions that you would like to answer when doing observations. As you look through your metrics, you will undoubtedly have more questions or some aha moments. Keep track of these on sticky notes so that you can discuss them with your frontline team. Look for more information when you do observations with the team, or bring them to office hours with the organizational advancement team to discuss. There are additional metrics and dashboards on Tableau pertaining to in-basket messages that you can refer to if you would like to further analyze your specialty's in-basket performance. However, keep in mind in this phase, you are only required to complete a preliminary data review. In Phase 2, you will have the opportunity to do a deeper dive into the data. Please reach out to the OA team if you have any questions or need clarification on the data. Now that we've reviewed the data dashboard, take the opportunity right now to review your preliminary data on Miro. You can find the link to your Miro dashboard on the confirmation email you received. As you review your data dashboard, make note of any key reflections or questions that come up. You might also note things you want to particularly observe when you do your process walks. Then, complete the handout in your workbook entitled Questions to Consider Preliminary Data Review with your team. This will be useful for referencing later. Feel free to pause this video to take the time needed to review your data and answer the questions with your dyad partner. Moving into Step 2, use what you learned from the preliminary data to plan and conduct process walks so it can help you narrow down to the specific problem you want to solve. So let's talk about observations or process walks. So what is a process walk? A process walk is going to where the work or process happens in order to see the 3 actuals. What we mean by the 3 actuals is being able to observe the actual process done in the actual place by the actual people. Data only tells a partial story, so it is crucial to go see the work happen to truly understand it. Completing process walks is essential in helping you and your team grasp the problem, define an area of focus, and start to understand the root causes and improvement ideas that will work. Let's go over the tools that you will need to prepare you and get most out of your process walks. You can find these in your workbook. The first tool is the 3 actuals. You will use this tool to report the major steps of the process you are observing. You can also use the 3 actuals worksheet to collect how long it takes for each step of the process to get completed. For example, you may want to use a stopwatch to measure how long it takes for a team member or physician to complete an in-basket message. The next tool is the waste worksheet, which goes over the different types of waste and how to identify them. Naming the types of waste helps create solutions that eliminate them. For instance, if a physician receives a message without all the information needed to make a decision, it can be considered a defect because the message needs to be sent back for completion, and also leads to overprocessing because there are too many messages going back and forth to get the needed information. This causes the patient to wait for a response. The following tool is the basic interview questions, which include sample questions to ask when you are observing people in the process. Feel free to add additional questions specific to your team. The Process Walk video is a training video that provides an in-depth understanding to conducting process walks. This video can be helpful to watch as a team before you conduct your observations. It includes tips on how to plan them, make a process map, and share your findings. The next tool is the process map template, which you will map out the observed steps from the 3 actuals. Keep in mind, this is a preliminary process walk. You won't need to create a robust process map during this phase. Once you move on to phase 2, you will be able to create a more comprehensive process map. As you do your observations, you may want to start to sketch the steps and how the work flows from one team member to the next. You will likely redraw this several times, so keep a few copies handy. The last tool is a sample process map. You can refer to it when creating your own process map. All these tools can be found in your toolkit on Box and in your Phase 1 workbook. When doing your preliminary process walks, take the opportunity to understand the types of messages that are being directed to the physician's in-basket and see if any of the messages could have been addressed by other care team members. This is a critical step in understanding why patients are messaging or calling, and also if the right team member is responding to the top of their scope. To collect data on the message types your office receives, we have created a template tally sheet. It is also in your Phase 1 workbook. After collecting the message type tally, make your data visual by inputting the tally information onto the provided Excel grid, which is available in your Phase 1 toolkit. Before starting your process walk, you and your DIAD partner should prepare yourselves for process walks, such as knowing what you are going to observe and logistics planning. Here are some questions to consider when planning for your observations. Again, there is a handout in your Phase 1 workbook called Questions to Consider Preliminary Process Walks, where you can document your plan for how to conduct process walks. This will be useful for referencing later. Feel free to pause this video to take the time needed to review the questions and answer them with your DIAD partner. If you have established regular project team meetings, our suggestion is that at this point, the team completes process walks and then returns at a subsequent meeting to complete the remainder of the steps for Phase 1 outlined in this video. If you would like to continue the video now, that is also okay, but please commit to doing the process walks even if you believe you know what is happening. It is always important to confirm your understanding by actually seeing it firsthand. Now that you have completed the preliminary process walks, it is important that the team has time to reflect on what each member observed. Utilize the questions on the screen to help you have a good debriefing conversation with your team. Complete the second portion of the handout entitled Questions to Consider Preliminary Process Walks to record the team's findings. This will be useful for referencing later. Feel free to pause this video to take the needed time to review the questions and answer them with your team. If the team hasn't completed the process walks, make sure each observer reflects on the following questions and comes to the next meeting ready to discuss with the team. Leveraging the preliminary data assessment and observations. In Step 3, you and your DIAD partner will need to confirm if this project is worthy of the team's effort, and if so, define the specific problem to be solved. So let's get into further detail for Step 3. When looking through your data and preliminary observations, where do you see the areas of opportunity that will give your team significant payoff in reduction of messages or time per message? For example, you may have seen opportunity in areas like sending more complete messages, common message types that could have been prevented, what roles are involved or not involved in handling the messages, how much variation or consistency there is across practices, and epic optimization opportunities for specific individuals or roles. If you and your dyad partner have chosen to move forward, the next step is to select the problem you and your team will work on. Leverage the preliminary data and observations you've done to help you land on an improvement idea. When selecting a problem to work on, consider the team's energy and engagement around the idea. To help narrow down the problem selection, we have compiled a list of common areas of opportunity that will help reduce physician time in PMAR and patient calls, such as too many messages to physician in-basket that could be resolved by staff, high volume of more than 10 touches per thread, high volume of clinical messages to physicians that could be resolved with a visit, high volume of repeat messages because patients have not heard back, physician time per message for all or some physicians. Not only does the list include common problems, but also potential countermeasures that can be used to address each problem. Review the list of problems and countermeasures to see if any of them resonate with you and your dyad partner. You can find the common areas of opportunity listed in your Phase 1 workbook. Here's an example of how a team used preliminary data and observations to create a focus area and define their problem. When they looked at the metric % of threads with high touches, they saw that 11% of total patient medical advice request threads, or 319 threads, had more than 10 touches per thread. Based on this, the team decided that when they went to do observations, they would be sure to ask and look at the threads with lots of back and forth, in addition to doing general observations. The preliminary observations done by the team showed that there was variation in how completely messages were teed up by staff, resulting in physicians having to ask for more information to be able to respond, inconsistent or incomplete communication by physicians to the staff, with next steps resulting in having to ask for clarity. Some doctors leverage same-day video visits for certain issues that usually led to lots of back and forth. For preliminary data and observation, this team concluded to set a goal around reducing the number and % of PMAR threads with lots of messages. Now that we've gone over the problem selection and an example, take the opportunity right now with your team to go over the data and observation to land on a problem you want to address. You can reference the common areas of opportunity list found in your Phase 1 workbook to give you some ideas of what you can take on. Additionally, here are some questions that the team could consider when figuring out what problem to select. There is a handout in your Phase 1 workbook called Questions to Consider, Define the Problem, where you can record the team's thoughts. Feel free to pause this video to take the needed time to review these questions with your dyad partner. Now that you have selected your problem, you can start drafting your problem statement. So what is a problem statement? A problem statement is a short, clear explanation of an issue or challenge you want to address. The foundation of a clear problem statement consists of numerically quantifying the gap from current performance to the goal. It should be simple enough for even a stranger to understand and should relate to the team. It includes who this problem impacts and why it's important to address this issue. Lastly, if it helps to tell the story, you can include any background or contextual information. Keep in mind, you won't have all the information, but you can draft a statement that outlines the issue you have decided to solve. Moving into step 4, you will vet the problem you've selected to solve with your Tier 2 or 3 leadership. Let's go over what you'll need to prepare for and discuss with your Tier 2 or 3 leaders. Once you've landed on a problem selection, set up a 30 to 45 minute meeting with your Tier 2 leader. When meeting with your leaders to get approval for your selected project, be sure to bring your preliminary observations and data findings. Review together your responses to the questions to consider that you and your dyad partner answered, and your draft problem statement. As well, bring an initial list of team members you'd like to have join the project. Upon agreement on the improvement idea selection with your Tier 2 leader, you're ready to move forward to the next step. Schedule any follow-up meetings with your Tier 2 as needed. Moving into the last step of Phase 1, you and your dyad partner will assemble and onboard the team you want to be part of the project. Let's talk about what this team should look like. When building your project team, be mindful of who you want to have join. The team should consist of 4 to 5 people to ensure the work is evenly distributed amongst the team. The team should consist of you and your dyad partner, a supervisor or lead, 1 or 2 frontline team members who do the work that your project will focus on, and the assigned EIS optimization representative. It is important that someone on the team is named as being responsible for coordinating the project meetings, tracking documents, and signing up for office hours. Once you've assembled your project team, set up a time to orient them to their roles and responsibilities for the project. To ensure the success of the project, it's important for the team members to be clear on the project work and the goal. Share the preliminary data and observations that were conducted with the new team members so they can understand how the project was decided upon. Refer to your Phase 1 instruction guide found in your workbook for tips to onboard your team. Your specialty has been assigned an EIS representative that will work with you should your project require EIS optimization solutions. Your EIS partner will be available once you start to get into a deeper current state analysis. Depending on their availability, they can join your team meetings or participate in OA office hours. They will be able to support building smart phrases, quick actions, and help train staff on these optimizations. It's important to keep your division informed as you work on this project. Throughout the project timeline, utilize the appropriate forums to keep the frontline team looped in and updated as you progress on the work. Forums or means of communication may include huddles, standing meetings, emails, or newsletters. Consistent and transparent communication from the team helps build trust and often creates pull for others to raise their hand with ideas or to get involved in the next improvement. Refer to your toolkit for communication templates and samples that you can use. This concludes the steps for Phase 1. Before you wrap up this phase and move on to Phase 2, it is important that you and your team have completed the deliverables for Phase 1. Review each of the deliverables and ensure you've completed them in a timely manner. Here's a suggested timeline for completing Phase 1 and its deliverables. It shouldn't take you more than 3 weeks to get this Phase 1 done. In Week 1, the team should watch the Phase 1 video, review preliminary data, start preliminary process walks, and communicate the spin launch with the frontline team. For Week 2, the team should complete the preliminary process walks, define the problem, and start drafting their problem statement. And then in Week 3, the team should meet with their Tier 2 leaders for idea selection approval, and then start building the spin team. If the team's timeline doesn't fall into the approximate 3 weeks, please come to office hours or discuss it with your Tier 2 leaders. As part of your checkpoint review, answer the questions on the slide with your dyad partner before moving to the next phase. Feel free to pause the video to have this discussion now. Thank you for watching the Phase 1 video. If you have completed all the deliverables for Phase 1, please move on to the Phase 2 video. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Organizational Advancement team for additional support or sign up for office hours.